For almost a 80-year-old woman, this is something. I'm really very, very honored. I really thank the committee that decided to recognize me for the RMAC. You'll have to excuse me here for a moment. I got to get myself gathered, but I didn't want to waste any time. So the video was something else. Also, I only have one immediate family member that's still alive, and that's my brother, James, the Reverend James Banks, and his wife, Ramona. I'm so pleased that they're here. The individual that you saw being interviewed in the video is one of my former players, Annabelle, and she's still teaching and coaching. And I have followed her career, and she's coached in several different places, even on the Division II level. So I appreciate her saying the things that she said. I have a friend here that we've been friends for I don't know how many years, and I said, I need somebody to go with me, and she said, I'll go. So that's good, that's good. So basically, I'm not going to really go over things that I did, because you saw some in the video, you've read some in the program, and all of that sort of stuff. But one thing I do want you to know, that when I graduated from high school, and that was Lindsay, Oklahoma High School, I was privileged to be able to play basketball, even though it was the divided court 6-player. It was basketball. We still dribbled and shot and passed and did all those things. But when I graduated, after making All-State 2 years, there was not a college or university where I could go to compete. So that stayed in the back of my mind. It's like, why can't women compete on the intercollegiate level as we know it today? So when I go through some of this stuff, I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. So after I graduated from high school, I thought my basketball career was over. There was only one college, believe it or not, there was one college that played women's basketball, but it was AAU basketball, and that was Wayland Baptist, Plainview, Texas, the Hutcherson Flying Queens. So I went down, tried out for a scholarship. It was the year before, the next year they were going into the Rover player in women's basketball, and I couldn't shoot. I only played defense in high school. So needless to say, I was told that if I would come down on my own and made the team, that could probably help me out financially, but there wasn't any way I could do that. My parents weren't able to help me out in any way. So along came the All-American Redheads. Best thing that ever happened to me. I grew up pretty fast. I tell everybody that I've dribbled a basketball in every state except Hawaii. So that's a feat in itself. But I've also seen this magnificent United States of America. So after that, played 5 years with the Redheads, but still, in the back of my mind, why can't women compete on the intercollegiate level? So I decided that the only way I could do that was to get a degree. So I went to the University of Central Oklahoma, got my undergraduate degree, taught a couple of years in Oklahoma City, taught a year here in Colorado Springs. And all that time I was thinking, what can I do? What can I do? Well, I couldn't think, but I knew that I had to get on the intercollegiate level. I had to teach on that level in order to get there, to do something. And so, believe it or not, I went to Adams State and got my master's degree. And Now, while I was at Adams, I was on a grad assistantship, and while I was there, an individual by the name of Budge Thrillkill, he was the director or the dean of something student affairs at then Southern Colorado State College. He came over to Adams State and talked to me about a job, and he said, we'd like for you to come over and at least interview with our athletic director, and also he's the head of our department. And I said, well, I can do that because I need a job. And it was on the intercollegiate level, and man, I thought I was in heaven. I was broke, but I was in heaven, you know. So I went over, and some of you can guess who I met for the first time. Harry Chief Simmons. Harry Simmons, some of you might remember him. He was pretty good, a coach. Anyway, so I went in and I interviewed and we talked, and he finally offered me a contract to teach. And I said, well, that looks pretty good. Again, I thought to myself, I need a job. So after I signed the contract, Harry Simmons looked at me and he said, Jess, I want you to start a women's athletic program. Now here is a guy that some people had trouble with. I never did, but some people. I admire him greatly because he had that vision that maybe someday women would compete on the intercollegiate level. So in the beginning, I taught a full load. All my salary, as far as the coaching goes, was my teaching salary. We played that first year in 1966. In 1966, if you think, women weren't competing on the intercollegiate level still. I started with basketball. Of course, that's what I knew the best. Now, we didn't play very many games that first year, and all my players, of course, were walk-ons. I just put a notice in the school paper, and here these women showed up, about 8 of them. Every one of them had learned to play basketball in the backyard with their brothers. So they could play a little. They could. I'm still keep in touch with a few of those people that played for me that first year in 1966. Now, what did we do? Well, we, of course, practiced after the men practiced. We drove our own cars. We paid our own way, but we played basketball. And I will never, ever forget that and forget that team and what everything happened. We played mostly AAU teams, like independent teams from here to Colorado Springs, Denver, so forth. There were a few colleges doing kind of like what I was doing, and so we'd play each other. Of course, as I look out over this audience, I think that some of you men, not all of you, might have a hard time visualizing all the things that we went through to have women's athletics on the intercollegiate level. So I want to tell you a few things here. I cut this pretty short, believe it or not. Now, I have some questions for some of you. Some of you may be able to answer them, and some of you may not. How many of you know when the first men's contest was held? That's history. People, why don't you know your history? It was held in 1852. Know what the sport was? Rowing. Rowing. Between 1852 and 1906, I'm talking about men's sports now, for just now, there wasn't really a governing body for men's athletics. What I've read and looked into, I guess they had a few problems with, they were playing, men were playing intercollegiate sports and so forth, but they didn't have a governing body. So, and I think it was 1906, I'm not really for sure, 07, somewhere in there, the president got a little upset because of the football. There were quite a few injuries, and he didn't think that was right, and so he called a group together, and they formed I don't have it written down, but an organization which in 1910 became the NCAA. So, do you know when the women first entered NCAA? Does anybody have that guess? 1983. My point is, it took women 73 years to get to the NCAA. Now, was there sports? There was, yeah. Thank goodness for AAU, because it did allow a lot of women the ability to compete in athletics, but not on the intercollegiate level. So, in 1971, there was a group of women from all over the United States, and I was fortunate enough to be there. We met in Overton Park, Kansas, and we formed the AIAW, Association of Intercollegiate Athletics for Women. They are the ones that started intercollegiate athletics for women. It wasn't NCAA, NAIA, NJC2A. It was the Association of Intercollegiate Athletics for Women. And so that was from about 1971 to 1983. So a little history there. Of course, I can't forget Title IX, can I? In 1972, Title IX was established, and that's when it was really came forth that women should be able to compete on the intercollegiate level. And I really, truly believe if it hadn't been for women fighting for the right to compete on the intercollegiate level and Title IX, there might have been another 73 years before we could compete. So, are we there yet? No. In my opinion, we're not there yet. What we need is some more Becky Hammond. Thank you.